Welcome back, Marine Tech Mike here, and there's a lot going on. This video is all about next steps with Home Again. So Mike and I, we think we had a great plan and a timeline and a budget. The mast is off, we did mast inspection, we've moved the boat. Now it's time to get to work. And so this video is a lot about, mostly put together for our technicians, because what we do now is we have a bunch of work orders, and our technicians in training are going to be out doing different things on the boat, and we're going to incorporate video this time instead of just a sheet with instructions, so that they can watch it and have an idea what's going on. So Mike and I made a list of all the things that we think should be done to get the engine ready to come out, and one of the big things that Mike's working on is cutting out the cockpit floor. So we've got totes lined up for where things go for organization. We've got the staircase up. We've got, we're working on a safety rail, so it's gonna be easy to come and go on the boat, and we're excited. So let's pop down into the engine space and video all of the tasks that our students are gonna need to do over the next couple of weeks to get ready to pull the old Wester beak out. One more thing, technicians and Mike, we're using the same staircase from King's Pride, and I think only about half of those trips got recorded. It's up to like 3,500. I'll get the actual number right here. We're gonna keep track, so every time somebody goes up, it's a one-way, it's a round trip. Every time you go up, please click the little counter, because we'd like to know in a standard repower how many trips up and down those stairs actually happen, because I think it'll be surprising. So let's get down inside and take a look. All right, down in here, first thing we're gonna have to do is get some lighting going, but technicians, here's what we need to do. One of the things is we're gonna start with fuel. So the fuel pump is over here, port side. We got these two red supply and return lines and some foam, and they head over to the fuel tank, which is over here. So we're going to get those pulled out and coiled up, plugged so they don't leak, and out of the way. Mike will finish getting dock lines and stuff like that out. Another task, you see the sea basket there, it's going to end up going up forward. So we're going to remove the hose here from the through hull, and the through hull itself will be on the list, because we're going to end up plugging that hole because the new intake comes through the sail drive. So removing two hoses, sea basket, and we'll get to the other side as well. So fuel lines and sea basket are a couple of the two things from the back side of the motor before I go on to the front side. And the other thing is right here, we need to remove the exhaust hose from the Wester beak to this water lift muffler, and from the water lift muffler all the way out back over the steering quadrant and out the transom. The water lift muffler will also get removed, so two hoses, water lift muffler, and back here we're going to remove the exhaust hose and the through hull that goes out the transom, because it'll get a new one as well. Okay, drivetrain students, what we're going to be doing is down there on the outside of the boat, we're going to need to remove the propeller, and then we're going to need to pop up in here and remove this coupling, okay, and get the shaft free. Then we're going to pull the shaft out, and Mike says on the non-such it's really nice because it'll fit with leaving the rudder in place. So we're going to pull the shaft out, then we're going to take a grinder and clean up so we can see fasteners. We're going to remove the entire strut. We have a few other things. While you're doing that, we should probably try to start putting some penetrating oil and freeing up some of the nuts on the motor mounts, because that's going to come out. And then before we pull the V-drive here, which is going to be part of a training aid, we can totally do that without too much work. We need to remove the oil from it. So another task on the task sheet is like 3 steps. We need to remove all the fluids out of the motor. And so what we're going to want to do is A, like I said, the V drive. B, we're going to suck all the engine oil out of the engine. And C, we're going to drain all of the coolant. And once the coolant is out, then we could probably even take this heat exchanger off the back because we don't want to damage it. Everything has to go back together. So we're going to, we're going to make this into a training aid, as Mike mentioned. While we're right here, I see the 2 throttle and shift cables. So shift is right here, throttle's up there on the fuel pump. So those 2 cables have to come off. Don't lose any of the clevis pins or anything. And coil those up over on top of the fuel tank and get those out of the way. So the idea is we're getting this engine stripped off. By the way, this looks like it's connected to the oil sump right there. So if you're wondering where to get at the oil, that's where it's going to go. So the batteries are going to get tested. They're underneath here, and you can access the starter and some of the engine's storage cabinet through this inspection hatch over in here. And in there we need to get rid of some things. So back in here, this heat exchanger is a little hungry. That's going to come out, of course. We want to also free up, remember I put penetrating oil, these motor mounts, and then get the battery cable disconnected from the battery, take it off from the starter motor, take off the engine ground. We want to remove this hose as part of the cooling system. So we know this comes from the C basket right here. So when you're doing that task, also remove this hose. And then we're going to take the engine alternator off. We're going to loosen this. We're going to take off the charge wire and the small wires. You're going to label everything. Remember, this has to go back together. So all the parts that we take off are going to go into a pallet box, marked Westerbeek parts, and the belt as well. And so all of that stuff can go into the spare parts box. And then the idea is also keep looking around. We're trying to get this thing shaved back, so obviously we can get the lifting gear on it once Mike gets the hole cut and get the Westerbeek out of here. I believe we can take the exhaust mixing elbow and riser pipe off as well with the bolts and get that out of the way. That'll help as well. We're going to clean this thing up, make it small as possible, and pull it out. We're not going to remove the exhaust manifold header tank unless we have to. We'll see. That should fit out of the cockpit. Here we are on the aft end of the boat again. Looking at this is the exhaust riser and mixer elbow that I was talking about. I think that can come out. We're also going to add a work order. This bilge pump right here needs to come out and its corresponding hoses. We're going to redo it, but we want to just open it up and pull that back. So this hose going aft can just get pulled back into the lazarette. The pump can get unbolted, and this hose can get removed. So that'll clean up the top of the engine really nice. And we'll see, here's the front of the alternator. So it's got pretty good access when you get down in here to remove that. We also can take the bracket off so it's not hanging up, or maybe it'll fall down out of the way. Okay, whoever has the motor mounts task, it's got a saddle in the front here, and so you're getting nuts off. I think the saddle will come up. We want to start penetrating oil and getting it separated here possibly, but the saddle can come out with 4 bolts and come with the engine. Probably an easier way to go. It looks like it's skinny enough to fit out of the cockpit. Not sure, but we'll start with that as our main plan. Okay, here's a view down in the starboard side locker. There's where the fuel tank is, and it's in good shape. This is where we'll be curling up the supply and vent lines and making sure they don't leak. And we might as well do this bilge blower as well. Let me see if I can get in here with the lights. It's a little bit tricky, so we can pull this out of the way. And the fuel filter also needs to come out of the way. And whoever's doing engine coolant can get the coolant recovery bottle out of the way. And we have an engine stop right here, which actually needs to be disconnected so we can pull the motor, and the new Beta will have, I believe, electronics, so we're not going to need this. So that's the work that needs to be done initially down here in the starboard side lock. Okay, whoever's on the work order that has to do with the wiring harness, we should be able to unplug the wiring harness from the engine, unplug it from the panel, and then we are also going to remove this panel carefully because we're going to need to use it, obviously, when we put the engine back into a training aid. So that can all get out of the way. Okay, technicians, I have filmed all the stuff you need to do. It's cold, it's still January, and it's a quick film. Sorry about the lighting and whatnot, but it's there. It's going to give you an idea on home again, this repower, what we need to do to get started. You'll have your work orders, you got the film, everybody's going to have tasks, and we are going to divide and conquer and get this Westerbeek ready to pull out of here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be super awesome when we can do that. So, thanks for watching.